Mrs. Lyons, all good? Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the Oradell Borough Council meeting for Tuesday, August 11, 2026 to order. While Councilman Chet Tashton is standing at attention, I'm going to read the compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was published in the official newspapers and prominently posted in Borough Hall and filed with the municipal clerk in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Tashton, would you lead us?
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank
The mayor
you.
is too young to understand back pain, and it's sitting and standing hurts.
I'll accept your compliment. Roll call, please.
Mayor Koth,
Here.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Tashian,
Here.
Mr. Kern,
Here.
Mr. Gullo is not here this evening, Ms. Harrer,
Here.
Mr. Banfield.
Here. Okay, so before we get into discussion, just a general note. We'll not be having any follow-up tonight on our conversation from the last meeting regarding the dispatch discussion. Some questions have been submitted to our staff to go and acquire the information, and we're going to give them an additional 2 weeks to pull that together. So there's still time. If you have questions you did not get to ask yet, you can compile them and get them in to either Ed or myself, and I can get them to him. We'd like the staff to be back before us at the end of the month to talk about what they've learned in response to some of the questions and discussion points that came up at our last meeting. First, under discussion is the next phase of storm restoration, and I guess I'll just broadly put this out there. There's no particular staff member here tonight to talk about this, but we've all talked about the wonderful job that our emergency services and our DPW did in getting us restored from the storm on July 4th. But we're kind of in that home stretch where the finish line is in sight, and we still have stumps that need to be removed. We have sidewalk slabs that need to be repaired. I would like to propose something. I'd like the council to weigh in, and this will affect some policy, so we might not make the decision tonight, but I'd like to at least have you all think about this, and we can make a decision by the next meeting. But we need to get across the finish line, right? Ed spent some time with DPW this week looking at what's remaining and kind of just teeing up that final list. One of the bigger things I think for them to handle is getting those stumps out. If it's not just as easy to grind, some of them literally came out of the ground and they've got to use equipment to remove that, and then that's a disposal challenge for us. They're very well prepared to do it, but what follows next is what the council wants to do. I would suggest, since this was a storm and this was not out of the course of a borough tree regularly defaming somebody's sidewalks, and some of them are in really bad shape, some can be reset. Some of those slabs did not break, could be reset, but some may need to be repoured. And my thought is that in one swooped effort that we work to mitigate that and either get those slabs reset or pour those new slabs. So once the stumps are removed, we can get that done and we close the chapter on the story and move on. But my proposal would be we'd be handling that. We would not be going to the resident to say, hey, consistent with our past policy, you should pay for half of this. I'd like under the capital budget discussion, when we hopefully have that in the coming weeks to close that up, talk about funding, putting funding aside for us to rejuvenate that sidewalk repair program where we had a cost share with the residents. I think as it relates to the storm, due to the magnitude of what happened, we should step in and we should handle that so that it's done and it's done properly. I just wanted to get some feedback from the council on what you thought. And hopefully the first question is, what does it cost? Because I don't know.
That was going to be my first
About
question.
$400 a slab. Does that sound about right, Dave?
400 a slab. Give or take. Might be a little less, but
No, I think that's a what.
I'll spread the It depends on how widespread they are, if they're in a group and stuff, but they do get to be costly just because it's bits and pieces. I mean, the positive thing is they're already kind of removed, so that
Yeah.
helps with that part, but they still got to pull them and then dispose of it. So.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not talking about slabs that have been cracked there for 10 years, right? We're talking about slabs that were displaced and destroyed as a result of what happened with the burrow tree coming down. So we can certainly get that quantified and get a number for that, whether we're resetting or we're doing new. But
I think it's a wonderful idea. And might there also be some emergency funds, either statewide or federally for
we didn't hit the threshold for the disaster. You needed to be over a certain threshold,
Oh,
just
really?
in the seven
Okay.
figures, and we did
so
not
we have to
get
knock
there.
down a few more trees and punch a few more houses? I'm sorry. I just
Was there any curb damage that needs to be repaired? Or most of what I saw was just the sidewalk slabs?
Yeah, I don't know, but we would quantify it if there was, and include that as part of the repair if necessary.
And there's no insurance at all, or no,
We can talk to the JIF, but
Yeah.
we have the JIF attorney in our presence who will say there's an act of God clause, and there was no way to foresee that, and there was no negligence on behalf of the borough, so that,
yeah.
you know, our luck filing a claim is nil to none. Now, if two DPW trucks crashed into one another, that's a different story. Right?
That is true.
yeah, because it was an extraordinary storm. It wasn't like your average summer thunderstorm.
Yep.
At some point, I'd like to have a more wide-ranging discussion about, the trees. Many of these were Oradell trees, were burrowed trees, and some of them, I think it would be reasonable to ask if we're going to get more storms like this or fewer. And if the answer is more, then perhaps we need to look at how we handle the older trees we have before us tonight. A situation where there's a request for burrow trees to be removed. And I don't think it's the time to do it right now unless someone disagrees, but I have a feeling we're going to have this sort of thing happen again, and maybe there's some ways we can get ahead of it. I don't know, but I think we should have the discussion.
And I think it's a good point. I think a long time ago in this borough, we had a shade tree committee, but I think that was disbanded a long time ago as well. So I guess there's a thought about maybe rebooting that.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out the policy first. I don't know that that's the solve-all, end-all, but I think we need to kind of do an analysis of what a reset would look like in terms of there's plenty of trees out there that should either be taken down right now or should be hazard pruned, because if we don't, the tree's going to end up there. Again, this is all more dollars, and the quantity is more than anybody would think. We've just not, I guess, kept up with it due to available resources, and now that storms are coming more and more and they're more violent, this is becoming an issue we have to bring to the forefront. So I could see us going through an exercise where another 100 plus trees could be taken down town-wide because they're just not deemed, something that's going to sustain itself for the long haul. But I think you also have to, on the back end, then say, well, when we get into tree planting every year, well, how and where are we doing this? Because the 3 feet between the curb and the sidewalk is not the most sustainable place to plant a tree that's going to get 50, 60, 70, 80 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right? So we're only creating headaches for others down the line. I think we just need to look at this holistically and say if we need to change course based on what we've done in the past, that we just set a new course.
Well, also it's the kind of trees you plant. When we first moved here in the 90s, we had 2 huge trees in our yard that went down, and what happened is one went down, it was going toward our backyard, and I was standing in the front yard watching it, and ran in the house to see where I thought it was going to land in the back, and just as I got in the house, I heard a crash, and a second tree was uprooted and landed right where I'd been standing. Luckily, they kind of missed my house. But the tree guys that I worked with said, look at these roots. They all go like this. And if you look around town, a lot of the uprooted trees have roots like this instead of like this. And it has to do with, at least where I live, there's a lot of clay under the subsurface, so the trees are not able to go deep. So you have to figure out what kind of trees will give us good coverage, but also perhaps go deeper with the roots, and not just some of these big oaks and stuff, they just go wide here because they can't get down.
More trees than not root horizontally versus vertically because they need to be able to get access to water and oxygen. So no matter what tree you plant, and I can tell you I've been done this for 30 plus years, 98% of the trees you plant have a fibrous root system that extends
Going sideways, really?
horizontally, which honestly is a better anchor, right? You might think to have a deeper anchor would be better. But, you know, when you have wind shear on the tree, you have that whole root system holding it back if the wind's going this way or vice versa or whatever the story is. The problem is when trees get trimmed asymmetrically, and you have them weighted more to one side.
Yeah.
There's been a job where part of the roots have been cut out and you've lost that tie into the earth. There's just a lot of factors that affect what
And there are a
goes
couple
on.
of trees on Ridgewood Avenue that were just recently trimmed, and they're like this. You know, there's a big branch out here and a little branch out here, and the wire's going in the middle. And, you know, it not only does it look awful, I think it's dangerous, you know, because I think the big branch going out over the road is probably not structurally all that secure. But let's have a big discussion about this.
So we'll calendar that for September or October, but everybody seems to be comfortable with having the DPW and Dave, if they need his assistance, quantifying sidewalk and or curbing if it needs to be replaced as a result of the trees coming down.
Yeah.
Sure,
Well,
yeah.
While we're on the subject of the sidewalks, I wondered, Dave, in other towns I've seen where the sidewalk slabs are uneven from one to another, and they shave it down. Instead of replacing the entire slab, they shave it or put I guess they put cement there to give it a little incline. Is that a feasible thing for us to do?
It's a feasible thing to do, not for us. Our code puts the responsibility on the homeowner, unless it's a sidewalk on borough property that we need to address, and we could certainly do that.
Okay, so the homeowner could do it.
They could, or hopefully we can fund a replacement program at a 50-50 match like we used to do and be able to provide some capital to them to do that, because it is in the public interest to have good, safe sidewalks.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do have one ordinance that has been real effective, which is the CO one, that requires sidewalks to be inspected in order to get a CO. And it has really led to a significant amount of sidewalks being replaced and leveled. So, and a lot of towns have moved to that model.
Well, look, I think there's going to be, we might be able to package some of this stuff together. Mr. Hines secured us a grant from Esposito Community Development that allows us to install new ADA crosswalks where none currently exists. So we'll be looking to do a bunch of this work. We could perhaps package it together.
You know, I think, Mayor, education, to Councilwoman Harriet's point, would be helpful, whether or not it's a town tree or not. You know, my home and the homes around me are, I'm sure most homes are surrounded by massive trees that are healthy. And if we're in, you know, 100-year storms happening every year, and even if the tree's healthy, do I want to take that risk now of having this tree smashing my home, or safety or insurance that I have to battle with the insurance companies, and, you know, or I have to be terrified and petrified every single storm that comes through. So it'd be great to have a tree, somebody here, if we have it on staff, or somebody to come in here and just to educate us to how to get ahead of that, as you mentioned. Even if I had a healthy tree, but that tree, if it falls, is going to cut my house in half. And, you know, I'd hate to see him go, but I don't know if this is it, but it certainly seems that we're going that way. You know?
Well, it sounds like we need a study, you know, and with some tree experts, and get some advice on where there might be issues and where there aren't issues. I think people are sometimes worried about trees that aren't a danger, and then the ones that actually are come down because nobody worried about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's random. Obviously, that storm was random when
Yeah.
you had one tree come down and the one right next to it not
Didn't,
come
yeah.
down. And, just by sheer luck or unluck, people got affected. So
Tom,
I don't know the answer to that.
I would equate it, so I don't think most people look at it in the way that if you have an air conditioning system, you probably have the guy come look at it once a year and make sure it's good and it's charged and it's ready to work, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people should do the same thing with a tree expert, right? And some of that is they'll just come out and quote if there's work, they do it that way. In other ways, you may have to pay them for the visit, but
Yeah.
to have somebody come out, if you like trees, and the town does like trees, there's a value to the aesthetic and other environmental benefits they provide. People just got to maintain them like they maintain everything else at
But
their
is
house.
that, if we're in a new world of whatever the wind speed was that we experienced, is that a moot point?
Yeah,
I'm
60 to
assuming that
80
it
miles
knocked
an
down
hour.
healthy trees. Maybe it didn't. I don't know.
I don't know. I
mean,
didn't.
I don't know. That was
I
whatever
didn't
that
do an
was.
autopsy on
I
every
didn't
tree
either, but
that was out there, but I would gauge to say that a lot of the trees that fell had some, in some way, shape, or form, were compromised, whether it was at the root or whether
And the
it was,
experts would know
at
that.
a crotch and other things. Yeah.
they would know that.
Darwin's
yeah.
theory,
I'm sorry?
weed out the weak.
Yeah, they would know that. At least,
Yeah.
all right, if they have the skills to say that one's good or that one's compromised, then
But let's pursue this because we all are supportive of this, I think.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I have a tree guy look at my trees every year or every other year for that reason.
okay,
Okay.
that's good.
Next, Dave, Councilman Tashjian, in earnest wants to get Summit Avenue paved, close out that section of work that's been done over there, and we've been discussing some of the drainage issues that came before the council probably 2 years ago at this point. And I know you've taken a look at this and you have a couple of options for us to consider. Maybe you just talk through the whole project for everybody's edification.
Sure. I'm sure everyone's familiar or driven on Summit, so I won't get into the particulars besides the road itself, relatively flat road. Yards are all flat, so that poses a little bit of a problem for us during the design process to put curbing in there. So what we ended up doing, we looked at a couple different options and things that can be done there. Essentially, we laid out 3 different alternatives for you in our memo. Hopefully you guys received it. It was June 1st, 2026. Quick and short option, alternate A through C are kind of similar concepts with what we ended up doing was we looked at the different approaches of, do we go with a consistent 30-foot road width through there, which is your typical road that you have throughout town as well as throughout the region. We looked at that synopsis and what impacts you have as far as carrying out that type of project on the street. And then we looked at maybe reducing it down to 28 feet. And then we looked at a varied option, because if you look at the roadway today, as you're closer towards Oradell Avenue, it's a little bit wider. It's in that 30-foot range today. As we approach and get closer to your S-curves, it narrows down. And then as we get over to Soldier Hill, it kind of keeps that narrow effect through there. So again, the options of what we looked at were to kind of keep things more consistent to how they are today, varying the width from 30, 28, and then down to 26. Why did we do the 26-foot width? As we get through the S-curves and in that area over there, some of the properties do have, well, we have the flatter portion near Oradell. As we get closer to Soldier Hill, we have more slopes and stuff to contend with. So if I go with a 30-foot wide road, I'm now impacting the front yards, and I'm going to have to put retaining walls and different things in there, which add to the cost of the overall project as a whole. So basically, the first 3 options: full roadway reconstruction. Why full roadway reconstruction? Well, we got to bring down the curb to match into the existing yard so that we're not trapping water in the properties. So by bringing the curb down, we got to bring the whole roadway down to minimize some of the impacts. Generally, curbing varies from 4-inch face up to 6-inch face. So if we went with the 6-inch face, again, it's deeper construction, more material that's got to come out of that roadway. So we decided to go with a 4-inch face curb throughout that section. It eliminates an additional 2 inches across 30-foot wide area for the roadway reconstruction. There are issues with doing the full roadway reconstruction aspect of it and lowering everything. We do have existing infrastructure under the ground, so you have water, sewer, and gas. Of the infrastructure there, really your gas is your lowest infrastructure, the shallowest infrastructure. So my concern when we start cutting things down, whether it's 4 inches down to 6 to 12 inches, we could get into the gas services, get into the gas main, which PSE&G is not going to be happy with this because they just spend all the money to put the gas main in and all the new services. So if we have to touch and adjust some of those, it's not necessarily the best approach to go with from the practicality side of things. Positive side of the full roadway recon, we have a brand new roadway section when we're all done with this full pavement section. We know everything is good. I mean, ultimately your road that's there today, yes, it needs to be repaved. But I mean, all in all, I don't know if you really need to do the full roadway reconstruction there, given the volume of traffic with residential roads. It seems to hold up pretty well how it is today, which to me would mean let's kind of leave that alone. So that's why we put together alternative D, which is kind of a partial reconstruction. So what we did was it kind of picked a happy medium as far as lowering the curb down along the edge. We're not going the full, 4 to, whatever depth we need to go with along that edge. We kept it up a little bit higher. Again, the positive side of that is we're keeping it a little shallower. We're not getting into the utility infrastructure that's there and potentially having conflicts with that. But at the same time, we're providing curbing, which the curbing helps channelize all the surface runoff from the street. The only drawback from that is we do need to look at the yards now, because the yards, a lot of them are pretty flat. When I add a 4-inch face curb there, I'm going to slope or back pitch the yards from the street. So to account for that, we incorporated in doing some under drains, some yard drains, and then tying that into the existing infrastructure that's there today to get the water out from within the lawn areas. We could look into, if that's an option the town wants to go with, we could look to do some like rain gardens and different types of things in the front yards. We don't necessarily have to, but that's another alternative or something we could look to do within the front yards along those properties. Not saying that that's something we would do, but ultimately something that could be considered through there. So the important thing, right? So what's the overall cost related to the project? I guess before we get into the cost, anybody have any questions on what I kind of laid out as far as
I guess
scope?
I guess in terms of modifying, residences' front or backyards, would that basically mean that they'd have an easement on their property? Would they need a sign off on this, or how does that work?
Yeah, so as far as we wouldn't be touching anybody's backyards. All the work would be done within the front yards. Ideally, we would try to keep the construction contained within the 50-foot right away. There may be some incidences where we might have to go back a little bit further to do some grading in the yards to make sure we get everything properly channelized through there. So in that instance, we would need to get some sort of construction easement, a temporary easement from the property owners to be able to go onto the property.
Okay.
But good question.
But in reality, so right now it's 30 and then 28. And a lot of those lawns go right to the street. So in effect, they're going to get 10 feet left. They think it's their front yard, but we're taking it back, if you will. Does that
No, we
make
wouldn't.
sense?
The only instant, like if we went with a 30-foot wide roadway, so our right-of-way is 50 feet
Right.
through that whole section.
So we're
Your
not
roadway
affecting-
varies from 30 feet, so let's just assume 10 foot and 10 foot on each behind the edge of pavement today.
Then it doesn't change.
Is technically part of the town right away. They're maintaining it, but we do have the right to work within there without any issues. We wouldn't be necessarily shrinking that area down, except for in the instance if we go with a 30-foot road width through that whole section, and I have an area where it's 24
28,
feet,
right, yeah.
we're going to impact and remove about let's just assume everything's exactly in the center of the right-of-way, which most likely it's not. But let's just assume it was, we went from a 24-foot road to a 30-foot road. That means I'm going 3 foot, so we're going to
Either
take
side.
3 feet of each of the front yards.
Is this the only, I'm trying to think, the only street in town that is like that, or the only bigger street that I know of that does not have curbs? Can I think of any other street like that?
There's probably a couple
know, that,
other like
where we have to do
smaller
that.
streets,
There's,
but not.
Homestead.
This is a fairly,
There's Homestead.
yeah, I mean,
You know,
there's a
the
couple
issue
of
is we've paved
one-offs.
Summit Avenue multiple times. It seems like every big project, we're paving Summit Avenue.
Yeah, it just seems like I can't think of another street, maybe Homestead, maybe a couple, but this is
There's a
this
couple
is the
smaller,
main
but
one.
this is probably I would say this is probably your biggest street that doesn't have
that
curbing
does not have
today.
curbs, and the issue is that one S part. That's the
So-
main thing to fix.
Correct. So the issue came to light. I mean, I'm sure Councilman Tashin's been talking about it.
Yeah, it's
since
down
he probably
there.
started sitting there about putting curb there. I'm sure. It
Yeah.
came to more light when one of the residents who's in the S curve, he's on the downhill side. In years past, somebody put along the edge of the road, they put a steel plate vertically to kind of act as the curbing. Obviously, steel over time. Rots, and now the water, what happens is the water ends up getting underneath it, and then it goes to his neighbor's property as well as his property and everything, and then water flows downhill, and unfortunately his house is downhill of that. So we had initially looked at potentially just installing some curbing within that section, within the S curves to kind of help that out. Some of the issues there too, over the years when it's gotten repaved, there's a couple low spots in that location, so the water does kind of just pool in that location and then, works its way into the property. So, as part of whatever we do, we would want to look at least reshaping that area to make sure that the water is properly
And there's
moving.
no catch basins the
There is
whole
not.
way. So this is going to go down to Soldier Hill, I assume, or
Yeah, so going from that the high point is really where your S curve is in the roadway, and from there it breaks, it goes down to Soldier Hill. There's no drainage from that point down to Soldier Hill. Given the overall span of it, it's not the end of the world. I mean, typically you space your catch basins about every 400 feet or so down the street to catch the runoff and help reduce the water span off of the curb when it's flowing. And then going from that direction, it's probably about a block and a half until we get to the next catch basins. Now, I will say from what I saw on the existing infrastructure, there was issues when they put it in back in the day because a lot of it is very small drainage pipe, about 8 to 10 inch diameter pipe. That's very shallow. So with the full roadway recon, we would have to look to rebuild all that stuff because we would also be getting into the drainage pipe. So I'm assuming there's a reason why it's as shallow as it is. There's probably some conflicts, whether it's with the sanitary sewer, which is most likely what I would envision being, when they put the piping in.
It would seem like we would need to do a lot of education when we decide what we're going to do so that every homeowner on the street understands the right-of-way and what's happening. And because, we think that people understand the boroughs right away, but I think if you've lived there a few years, sometimes people do start to think of it as their property. And so we need to be careful that we educate all the homeowners along the road once we decide what's going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to provide them. The more information you can provide them, it's definitely not a bad thing because when we get out there to start construction, usually it's either Ed or Laura's phone that ends up blowing up. Like, oh, I know nothing about the project or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hurt.
Communication always helps, I think.
Sure.
Question, are any trees involved in this if we don't do any widening?
Trees need to come down. to put in the curbing. So depending on which option, the original number, I think if we went with the biggest one, which is the 30-foot wide road, we were looking at about 16 of those trees on that street, but I think there might be 2 less because I think 2 of them had come down during the storm. So there were 16 under that approach. With the partial reconstruction, there was about 12 trees that needed to come down. So however we look at it, there is going to be an impact to the trees along that stretch of the road. But you know, what we've been trying to do with our road projects in general is if we take trees down, we're planting new trees. In years past, I know there was an arborist that we've worked with, had a contract with the town, and she was the one that kind of provided us recommendations for different species and things to work with, you know, through the different corridors that we've done. So.
Thank you.
And at the end of the day, this ties into PSE&G then coming in.
Correct.
They're dime to repave it, correct?
It would be their dime to come in and mill out 2 inches and put back 2 inches of pavement. So that's their portion of it. So in the cost breakdown that we have, so we laid out the cost for those different alternatives that are there. Obviously, alternative A is your most costly one, all in, which includes contingency as well as a 20% soft cost in there. We're looking at about 1.25 million, which would be, if we take out PSC&G's responsibility, which is really just the top 2 inches in that synopsis, it brings it down to about 1.16 million. That's a 30-foot wide road, full reconstruction. If we go with a 28-foot wide road, full reconstruction, we're looking at about 1.1 million. If we take out the PSC&G portion, we're at about $1 million for that. Again, full reconstruction, looking at a 30, 28, 26, where we're varying the width of the roadway. We have a cost of about 1.05 million. With the PSC&G portion, it's about 950,000 is what we're looking at for the town side. And then the last option, which is option D, which is really the one that we kind of recommend to you guys. It is the most economical one. Basically, the total cost, we're looking at about 890,000. With the PSC&G cost reduction, it gets us to about 770,000. So it's not a small undertaking to go this approach of putting the curbing from Oradell to Soldier Hill.
C versus D, that's 4 inches versus 6 inches and only...
So the difference between C and D really comes down to C is a full roadway reconstruction, meaning we bring that curbing all the way down to Marion with the people's front yards. And we're dropping that roadway down, you know, roughly 4 to 12 inches depending on it, because we got to look to reshape the roadway to make sure we have the proper slopes and stuff on it to make sure the water flows along that curb line. The difference with D is we're not doing that full reconstruction. We're doing kind of a partial reconstruction where we're focused more so on the shoulder area and varying that cut along the side to minimize things. But on the side, the offset of it though is we do have to put drainage within the front yards in certain locations, so we're not trapping the water in their front yards.
If we go with the least expensive option, what negative things might we find that we might regret having not gone a little bit further?
I mean, the biggest negative stuff, I mean, we kind of laid different things out here. I mean, the cons, basically, so it is a little bit more of the tree removal than B and C, the B and C option, because we're going to be cutting into those properties and regrading stuff. So you're going to get into the tree roots and stuff, and there is a little bit more lawn restoration that we're going to have to do as part of the overall project. So the impact to the people's front yards.
Dave, 2 questions.
Sure.
Did we look at, it seems the place we've received the most complaints about drainage is between Lotus and Soldier Hill, specifically on the curve. Have we looked at an option of just doing curbing from Lotus to Soldier Hill in kind of like looking to phase this? Because there's two things that kind of get thrown at us. Number one, they would like to pave sooner rather than later. A full reconstruction is just like, we might as well have them pave another street and take the credit and we just pay for it ourselves.
Correct.
But I would say, did we look at just that section, right, to do that as a phase? Or when you look at the cross-section of the road, does it really move water to one side versus the other? Could we get away with just doing a curb on the side that the issue is on? Just to direct the water then horizontally, right, away and to the drain. Look, a full, proper reconstruction would be an ideal way to attack this, but we all know that, it never works that way. And so due to timing, and we'd really need to budget this kind of a project, this is not a part of our annual repaving, go out, get a number, and let's do it. You're talking about like a year plus, next fall, maybe this road's gonna get paved, if we went out and issued a contract this fall.
Right.
So I'm just trying to think outside the box on the funding front, on the shock of face value to the residents front, even though, yes, we have the right to go do that, if we can deal with the area where there's a problem right this second, if that's an option for us, maybe we should look at that.
I mean, so it is something that we had looked in initially. So when this first came to us, and PSE&G was going to pave it, we had quickly looked into ways to just address that one location. So there's definitely a way to do stuff there. Installation of drainage is definitely, when we looked at it at that time, we can get away with not doing drainage in that location because that S-curve is your high spot. So what our plan was to kind of modify the grading, particularly along the westerly side of the road, which is where your problem is, and adjust where the high point is and make sure that it's properly defined so that the water's sheeting towards Soldier Hill and sheeting towards Lotus. And then by doing that also, we ended up, we were putting curbing in along there to get that addressed. So we had looked into doing that and various things that kind of got pushed to the side. So it's definitely something that could be done. And I think it kind of got pushed because we also wanted to look and see about doing the entire street and what it would take to do it, as opposed to just kind of doing a little bit of a piecemeal to address, the one problem area.
It doesn't solve the overall issue that when you don't have curbing, that road is just getting chipped away every winter.
But if we dealt with the issue where we addressed the drainage, where it's affecting the residents on the curve, and we got the paving done, that at least buys us another 10 years before you really find ourselves in this discussion again, right? And you could plan and budget for that and do all kinds of things. I'm just trying to think outside the box on all sides of the spectrum here, right?
No, I'm with you.
From the most expensive, because that's like more than a year's paving.
Yeah.
Right,
So
just for curbs.
We have a curveball in here, and the curveball is PSE&G. I'm going to ask if we can table this for one more meeting, because by then I will have had a sit-down with PSE&G, and I'll know what our exposure is on the east side of town for that repaving down there. And, based on what we already have bonded, outstanding, and what new will come this year, I'll be able to give a presentation as to the financial impacts to us.
Yeah, I don't think we were looking to make any decisions
No,
tonight.
definitely not, but I'll have a lot more
information.
information. I want to move this. I wanted to move this
Yep.
5 years ago.
And, and back to what the mayor said, if it's something, we just do that section there, that road, Summit Road would qualify for a DOT grant because it's connecting, two county roads. I mean, those are typically the ones that we try to look at and focus on when we're submitting for our DOT grant. So, and the DOT will cover the cost for curbing as part of their stuff. So that could be something that we look to do in the future. Obviously, if it gets paid by PSE&G.
Well, I can reallocate those resources easily. No questions asked.
Yeah, the only issue it comes down to for us now is we just submitted for DOT in July, so we wouldn't be submitting for a grant on Summit.
year.
If you were to hold off on doing the paving now, you wouldn't be submitting the grant until July of 27.
And
You
likely-
wouldn't get the money till you would find out in fall of 27. You're looking at a 28 road, which
We're looking at 29 because we'd likely resubmit for 28 for another portion of Summit Avenue and then look to combine 27 and 28 and do it in 29.
right.
And that's reality. Wouldn't you agree with that? Try to combine both because at least then you
Yeah, I
get
mean,
overhead and everything
There's a
in
way
one
to be
shot.
creative with it, sure.
So Dave, can you explain the math? If this road had curbs, et cetera, and PSE&G is coming in, replacing pipes and paving basically for free, right? Some of our roads? Mm-hmm. So if this had curbs, the numbers you were mentioning, us 1.2 with the PSE&G money 1.1 or whatever that number was, I'm assuming that roadway, that PSE&G, if we were to do it, it costs us $500,000, right? So where is that? You're going to re-level the road and do your thing there, but why, if PSE&G was going to pay for the paving, or if that's a given, why is that difference from whatever you mentioned, 1.1 to 1 million, or it was a minor,
Right,
rather than
so-
500,000 that PSE&G covers for the.
Right.
You
So, I
follow?
mean, I just took out, so as far as their items from our cost estimate, basically, under the first three options, we're doing full roadway reconstruction. So maybe under the PSE&G option, they would give us a credit for the milling because they don't have to do it. My guess is they may not be so nice about it, but I'm
It's
sure Roger
because
can
we
work
have
his
to
magic.
We have to
But-
do irregular milling or something. We can't say you do the milling, we do it, and that's why we're carrying that cost, not
Well, so
PSE&G.
the problem comes down to is like we're coming in, we're bringing in our contractor A to do the town portion. He's got to get it to a certain point to where when he's done, it's just a matter of PSE&G coming in and either milling out and then putting the 2 inches down, or under the full roadway reconstruction, they're reshaping that whole road section. So ultimately, they would shape everything. They would do your stone layer and then your base layer of asphalt, get that done, and then PSE&G would just come in, put down tack on it to adhere the two surfaces, and then pave the top 2 inches.
Yeah, I mean, to Councilman Teschen's point, it may make sense then if we're gonna get a benefit at another street for 500,000 rather than $100,000 benefit up there, if you follow where I'm coming from, right? That,
Right. I mean, they basically, so the
No,
way
no.
PSE&G works
I
it,
think the dollars net out, Tom. So what it would cost them to pave there, if we told them pave a different street, it's going to cost them
Is
the
that
same
right?
to pave the
yeah,
other
they
street.
just look at, when PSE&G does it, it's a little bit different than how us engineers do it. As far as they simplify it, I guess, and maybe us engineers overcomplicate it, but it's
Imagine that.
but we're following the DOT requirements. So, but ultimately, they just look at the surface area, right? So if Summit Road is 10,000 square yards of surface, they'll apply the 10,000 square yards of surface somewhere else in town, and as long as they're providing their obligation to you, they don't care if it's on Summit or if it's on Beechwood, for example. That's one of the easterly roads. So they're just looking to make sure they give you what they're required to give back, if that makes sense.
not yet, but no, okay, yeah.
You know,
Again,
when
if Midland costs 400,000 to do, right? And if you just said they're gonna pave Summit, and again, that delta between us and them was 100, not 400 or 500. That's what I don't get, but I don't need to get into the weeds. I can.
He's just using numbers.
Yeah,
The delta
okay.
is going to be the same,
Let
no
me
matter
sit
whether
with
we paid for
PSE&G
it
next
or they
week
did.
and
Right.
we'll get back to you.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't wanna,
Yeah, it's,
I get it, all right, I trust it, worse.
He's being cheap.
You know, when I lived in Utah, they had spring runoff from the mountains. And what they did is they literally created a cement channel that went down all the roads, and you could see it in the spring. It would be like a river, going down. And then, of course, they had a catch basin in the place where it ended up. Is there any way that we could just do a channel like that? But then, of course, we'd have to be sure we have a catch basin to catch it where the water is running the most.
yeah, I mean, whether I put that or I put a curb in, I mean, it's
You
going to
d-
be the same cost, and at the end of the day, the curb will keep the water from going into the people's yards. The curb will prevent people from driving in people's yards. If you drive the street today, you'll notice people have a lot of large rocks along the edge of the road. There's a reason they have them there. I'm sure if you were to go park there, for whatever reason, if you were, you would make sure you don't hit one of those rocks.
Yeah.
Same with the snow plows. I'm sure it's there. So
But you're saying the channel doesn't save anything?
it's not gonna. I mean, by the time I build the concrete channel,
Yeah,
it's gonna be the same. If it might actually be a larger footprint than my concrete curb
Okay.
would be at the end of the day, because you're probably looking at about 1.5 to 2 foot concrete channel, and then 12 inches. It's the
Six
same.
of one and half a dozen
The
of
only,
the
the only thing it may save us on is the fact of, you could put that in, but I wouldn't necessarily have to modify the road to lower it down in option A through C.
yeah.
So, but I think the functionality of it, the concrete curb here in this area would work much better. I mean, in Utah, I'm assuming those areas are all in the mountains. You don't have
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot of
they have mountain
residential
runoff.
homes there, and so it's a little
But we
bit.
have yards that look like Oradell, but they have this channel running along all
Right.
the streets. And I was astonished because they literally have rivers there all spring. But it keeps from running into the yards and into the streets.
Understood.
So I just was curious if that was an option. Okay.
Any other questions?
More to come.
Okay.
While we're on this, though, can you touch upon, so we have this situation, this ties storm cleanup to Howard Court. We have ownership of that creek from Essex Street to the Paramus line. They're our lots. I don't know whoever did that. Hopefully I never find out. We have to plan on how to better manage that area so it doesn't adversely impact the residents that border those lots. But we have one scenario where there was substantial damage done to the bank of the creek, and we need to act on it. So Dave, maybe you can talk a little bit about what options you laid out in our correspondence the other day, because I would like to authorize you to do what needs to be done in the short term to deal with this as an emergency so that we can stabilize it. And we'll deal with this one area now as quickly as we can. And then we're going to have to plan to deal with the rest of it over time in a planned way, because it's not a good situation. But
Yeah, so just to give some quick background, obviously we had the major storm on the 4th of July. During that particular event, in this section of the brook, which is the Van Sawmill Brook, there was a couple trees in that location. Somehow that section of the bank broke loose. It slid down into a portion of the brook itself. The trees themselves have since been, I think they fell down as part of it. So now we have a section of the brook essentially where the channel has been reduced in width, and we have a section that's, in an unstable condition. Some quick measures were put in place to just kind of help prevent some additional erosion. The Public Works team came in and added some stone there on a temporary basis just to kind of fill in the void, because the gap between the bank and where it shifted in some areas is about almost 2 foot, and it goes down a pretty significant drop, maybe I think like 3 feet or so. I didn't really, somewhere in that range. So quick and short, so that section of bank we need to rebuild. There's different ways to go about doing it. The DEP does regulate anything within the waterways and the channels, and restricts on what we can or can't do. Given the overall length of this section, I think we can get away with doing what they call hardscaping or hard armoring. Hard armoring would be, putting riprap or these gabion baskets, which get filled. Basically, it's like a chicken wire, and it gets filled with stone, and then you're building a wall that's all interlocked. They get wired together, and it goes along the bank, and it helps stabilize the bank. And as the water flows through, it does allow the water to flow through the rock, but it prevents further erosion. So we could look at doing hard armoring in that location. The DEP does allow us to do up to 150 feet of it. We could look at soil bioengineering, which if you look into, I'm sure in Utah, they probably use a lot of that for some of those steep slopes where they wash out, but I don't know if that necessarily is practical for this particular location. Really, it's kind of the, the hard armoring is probably the better approach, or we could just look to, put soil back in there, use some jute matting, which helps hold it in place, do some plantings, and go that direction. That's going to be the least expensive approach to go. But ultimately, I think the better approach is going to be, and most aesthetically, of the three options, the more aesthetically pleasing would end up being the gabion basket route. That binds everything together, makes it a solid thing. And then it does, over time, allows the vegetation and stuff in that area will just grow back in, and it'll fill into those voids. We've done, not in this instance, I've done some of them with that where we had to put in what they call live plantings, which I'm like, live plantings, I'm like, aren't all plants live? But it's a specific type of plant where it's a very woody thing, and it ends up just getting nailed. You kind of nail it into it. It's a live twig, and it has the root growth, and it grows into the stone and eventually becomes more green and vegetative. So those are the different options that we have there. We do need to do something sooner rather than later. Again, the brook itself is obviously, it's regulated by the DEP. What we would look to do under this scenario, given the emergent nature of it, we can reach out to the DEP, discuss the situation before us, request for an emergency permit from them to carry out the operations. At that time, we would put together a couple quick sketches and some details showing what we're looking to do. They would then review that, give us their, assuming they're good with everything, they would give us their blessings, issue an emergency permit with the understanding that within 90 days of completion of the work, we would submit for the actual permit package, which would be an as-built sketch of the thing along with all the other required environmental reports and stuff that are needed to obtain the DEP permits.
We use riprap along Lake Michigan, and we find it can sometimes in big storms destabilize, and not as fast as soil, but certainly it can. The bags are so effective. I really like that idea, but it's obviously what you all think is the smartest move.
Channel, I mean, the nice thing with this stretch of the channel is it's really very straight. Where you begin to have a lot of issues is when you have your bends and curves, because then as you're coming, the velocity of the water wants to keep going straight, and it eats it away. It removes the soil and then deposits it on the inside and just keeps doing that over time. Thankfully here, it's pretty straight, so I mean, there is erosion and stuff. If you were to walk along the banks there's definitely erosion and trees that have been undermined. Everything's, like the mayor said, we'll have to look to address this at some point sooner rather than later. But this is the section we need to look at.
So here's my ask of the council. Given the time that goes in with engaging DEP and other things, I would like us to verbally authorize Dave to get moving on this process of coming up with two options and the cost for each, and working to make that emergency application to DEP. And we're going to ratify that approval at our next meeting once he gives us the full proposal. But, he's going to go on time and materials right now until we get that proposal, and we can vote on that at the next meeting to authorize him to undertake the work. But I'd like him to get started now. Right? Is everybody okay with that?
Okay with that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Go.
In fact, get out. Go start working. No, I'm kidding. All right.
You can leave now.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is, anybody have any old business? If not, we can entertain new business.
Mayor, I just have a couple of things just to acknowledge the flower plots in town and the hard work. I think every single one of them are spectacularly beautiful, and it's amazing. Thanks to our DPW they must be doing a great job watering them. Obviously, we've gotten some rain, but You know, they've looked every single one of them as good as they've ever looked, and it's amazing that what our residents and committee members did in April or May, whatever it is, a tiny little seedling to become what that is. So really, and then we did have a number of residents engage our businesses to monitor and keep those flower pots nice. So a lot of them have, which is great, and it just makes our downtown look nice. So just to thank them, and also to acknowledge, before we forget, this past Thursday, and the mayor was there. It was a special event on Reese Avenue at the ribbon cutting for our newest resident for Habitat, and Roger and David and John, and a bunch of us were there, and it's really a neat day and something really to be proud of, that Oradell donated the land up there. 3 young boys under 5 years old, newest residents to Oradell, so just really neat and amazing the work they did, and to welcome them to our town. Right? Really great.
Yeah, no,
great
it's good
day.
stuff. Tom even helped build the house.
And yeah, so this issue's going forward, and hopefully it wasn't my work, but yeah, that's it, Mayor.
Thank you.
Jim,
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, I know will come up, it's mentioned in our correspondence, but the Oradell Avenue Bridge, the public information meeting, which I was able to attend, was very informative. There's open communication, request for comments from the public. I encourage anybody to go to OradellAvenueBridge.com. And you can see the plans, what the proposal is. It's in PE, which is, what's that mean?
Planning and engineering.
Planning and engineering phase. So they don't anticipate, according to this timetable, the actual construction until 2029, I believe. So it's a ways away, but you know, take a look. It's well thought out. The idea was to make sure that the traffic is not, that the bridge stays open east and west. It's complicated, but it looks well planned out. So I encourage residents who are interested, OradellAvenueBridge.com, spelled out the whole way.
And also written comments can be made until September 4th, and they should be mailed to Joseph Baladi, B-A-L-A-D-I. And I think you can probably find that at OradellAvenueBridge.com. They have the information there, but you can give written comments up until September 4th. And hopefully we won't have to do, I've been working with Sam Tripsis on the visual book about Oradell, and we just found one where the Oradell Bridge was out, and we saw someone going across on a rope and a rocking chair. And I thought, well, we'd like that, wouldn't we, having to travel across the bridge on a rocking chair and a rope? So hopefully we won't be doing that.
Right. So the only thing I would say, yes, this is done with a federal grant, so there's nothing quick about federal anything, and the timeline is legit as Dave described it. And one of the complications is keeping bidirectional traffic at the time the bridge is being constructed. If any member of the council has any comments, please get them into Ed within the next 2 weeks, because we will be sending formal correspondence back from the borough.
From us,
Don't
okay.
do that yourselves on behalf of the borough, right? We speak with one voice. We'll put our letter together and then send that back in advance of the deadline to receive written comments. Okay. Laura, can we read the correspondence into the record, please?
Sure. There's a flyer for the Oradell Avenue Bridge meeting hosted by Bergen County. It was a rescheduled date. And also there's copies of a letter that was submitted to DPW regarding a tree removal situation at 862 Bellows Parkway.
Okay. Thank you. Next is the approval of minutes. We have May 26th and June 9th. Anybody have any comments, corrections, or otherwise on, we'll start with May 26th. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of May 26th.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm sorry. My copy, for some reason, was sort of garbled, and so I didn't really have a great chance to see it, just FYI. I don't know why it was redlined, or I don't know if you had that, but maybe it was my printer. But
It looks like I had the track changes on.
Oh, You know what, I guess we'll have to, when I email them out,
We'll
I'll have to
set it
scan
like
them in
that?
as a PDF moving
So,
forward.
We'll defer these to the next meeting.
yeah, let's, Laura, we'll put this on for the August 25th
That'd be
meeting.
helpful, yeah.
That's
Okay.
fine.
I'll re-email them in a PDF so
Thank you.
everybody sees
Yep.
it.
Okay, we're at public comment. I'll entertain a motion to open for public comment on non-agenda items. Each speaker will have one turn and not exceed 5 minutes. Please don't make me hit the gavel on the wooden thing here.
Okay, good evening.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening, Council. Our planning board canceled the meeting for
Oh.
August.
Sorry, 1 second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Ready?
Yeah.
Our
Okay.
planning board canceled the meeting for August. That's 3 times in the last 4 months that the planning board has failed to meet and recommend an ordinance that storefronts must have windows. This is dilly-dallying and delaying in their duty to bring the issue to the city council for action. See you in September. Now, at the southern end of town, 2 of the 3 light poles that were knocked down have been installed. And both single lights. One that replaced a double light, so much for that. One light is better than none. At the intersection of Berkshire and Kidderminster Road, those 2 there. The 3rd light on the northeast side has not been replaced yet. Just wanted to report on that. Now, glad to hear about the entire B1 zone to be 25 miles per hour. Has the paperwork been submitted to initiate the new speed limit with the county for approval on county roads? It takes a long time for the county to approve, so we must put in for it as soon as possible. On the new system of dispatch, I just wanted to say I believe it's still worth it to have a man at the desk, even if we go that way that they said. So keeping an officer at the desk is important to me. Okay. Now, clean water is required for a civilization to flourish, for a healthy population. Going back to Byzantine and Roman eras, the parcels of land surrounding our reservoir were sold for housing that resulted in a loss of surface water being naturally filtered as it enters our reservoir. Surface water is covered by Veolia water of Hackensack that is, as of 2021, served a 792,713 population. Now, Veolia has not provided to the public what it has doing to filter out forever chemicals, PFAs, and microplastics. Now, there's some news now. The federal court approved PFA's settlement of 3M and DuPont. A court approximately approval of $2.5 billion, $795 million for PFA's abatement, $150 million to assist public-owned treatments, and $90 million for PFA's fire training academies that use forming foam containing PFAs. So we should look into the foam that we use in Oradell if it contains PFAs. I don't know. I hope it doesn't. It doesn't. Good. All right. There has been cyber attacks on water systems in 7 states, including New Jersey. And 2 North Jersey systems were attacked. Not disclosing which systems they are. We haven't been allowed to know about that. The FBI said that hackers have remotely accessed and impacted water operations. There have been no impact as of now, they said, and security and surveillance of reservoirs is most important to us these days. And that's all I have to say today.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public on non-agenda items?
Ori Katzin, Laurel Drive. Good evening, Council. The issues, the three issues that were discussed in the beginning of this session that are planted, Mayor, I believe you mentioned the 3 foot between the road and the sidewalk. You said it cannot sustain 100-foot tree, or let's say 50-foot tree. Yeah, I think you said 50-foot tree. I just want to say that in 2020, right after Roger, you remember you were proud on the reconstruction of Schaefer and right there by Schaefer Avenue where they had the water standing. They planted 20 trees on Schaefer, Laurel, and Morris Street. A truck came in from a landscaping company, I guess was ordered by the DPW, and within 30 minutes, a crew of 3 people planted 25 trees within 30 minutes. All, each tree was in a bucket-size container. They dug 3 or 4 shovels of dirt out, put the tree in the container, covered it up, and kept to the next one. How do you expect the roots of the trees to ever go deep if they have to go deep inside? As you know, we have a lot of water all year round, and the roots are lazy. As someone who grew up on a farm, I can tell you that we actually used to have drought periods sometimes for some of the crops to make the roots go deep inside, to train the roots to suck the water from deep inside the ground. But since we have a layer of clay about, I believe, 4 or 5 feet right below all of our homes, sometimes even less, these roots are lazy and they're never going to penetrate, so they're going to go sideways. And when they go sideways, you all welcome to Laurel Drive. I'll show you right from the road, the Bova residence with a 100-foot oak tree, and you can see the root base which toppled, okay, and lifted up the shed. You can still see it over a 6-foot fence. It's wide as wide as maybe 10 feet wide, but it's only 2 feet deep. That means that 100-foot oak tree had 10 feet wide roots, only 2 feet deep, did not go in. So that was in 2020. So I suggest that next time the DPW is doing any kind of a planting, there will be a supervisor, someone from the DPW that supervise them, that they literally dig a deep hole, get the soil mixed up with either peat moss or some kind of other lighter dirt so the roots can penetrate, but also clear room for the roots. So what I did, I told the DPW, don't plant the 5 trees across my house, and you can all welcome to go and see them. It was 2020 June during COVID. So me and my landscaper dug a 4 by 4 foot wide, 6 foot deep. Removed the soil, okay, mixed it up with all kind of dirt that we got from Isley's nurseries, and we put the soil right back there, planted the trees. So now the trees that I have in front of my house, which are October Glory maples, first of all, they only grow, October Glory only grows to about 40, 45 feet. They're wide, but they only grow that high. But doing it the right way, now, even if it costs a little bit more money and more time, per tree prevents hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage to the town and does it right. And the tree is going to look nice because the roots are going to go down and suck the underground water because we have a high water table in this town, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And all you need is someone from the DPW to supervise the work that is being done. Okay, and that's basically all I have, and I'm still waiting for the ordinance about the honorary names. It would be nice if it will get approved soon, so maybe before Oradell Family Day, which takes place at Prospect Avenue, we can have a sign over there and we can do something about it to honor Sergeant Solinas. He's watching from above, and you guys are sleeping on it, and it's been 2 years since I sent the
Mr. Katzen, I'm going to stop you there. We've talked about this numerous times. The council has discussed directly with the family a plan that they have endorsed.
Okay?
And I'm not going to share that with you right now. I can talk to you offline, but you sitting here and demanding the council act on something that you think should be done, I honestly think is slightly disrespectful of the family's wishes, because that's not what they're looking for. And I don't want to get into this debate because they don't need to watch this on TV, but this council is prepared, and we've discussed with them directly, something that's significant, that we're moving towards working with them.
I understand, but I have a different letter from the family.
Okay? Thank you. Anyone else for non-agenda items? Okay, motion to close? We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll look for a motion to open for consent agenda items only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the floor is now open.
Paul Tunis, 50 Beverly Road. 26171. Provident Bank and Columbia Bank. Have they contributed any money to for political contributions or pay to play so that they can get our business?
Are they required to submit a disclosure form with their submission for the RFP? I don't recall.
Yeah, if they're awarded, have to submit a financial disclosure to make sure there's compliance.
Okay.
I don't know offhand what that is, but
I don't think that anybody here has received any funding from the bank. Have we?
No, pay to play is if our elections were sponsored by the banks. Mine wasn't. Was yours? Was yours?
No.
No. Was yours, Roger? Was yours, David? Did a bank fund you to get elected? No. I think we don't qualify for that.
There you go.
Okay, excellent. All right, 26175. I'm asking, who is the qualified purchasing agent, and how many proposals were considered other than the KSSS? Has KSS made any contributions to the town political or other things?
You want to touch on it, Ed? They've not made any contributions.
Okay, and well, how many proposals were considered?
I believe we went through a pretty lengthy process on this one.
Yeah.
And in the end, we settled on a respondent who we felt was going to best serve the employee and the borough's needs to deal with these ridiculous premium increases that we keep being saddled with year after year. This year's is almost $750,000.
Well, the thing is that I wanted to know if there were the other proposals, and in the light of what had happened way in the past, where Mr. Ed Hines had found out about something that happened prior with the previous mayor, and that's why I'm asking this question.
Not an issue here.
Okay, thank you.
I've beaten him over the head on this one. He's
Thank you.
very eager to move on and get this consultant on board to be able to help us. Anyone else from the public for agenda items?
Yes, Mayor, I just want to ask about 26-175. What kind of insurance are we talking about? The broker is handling
Benefits,
benefits
healthcare.
for the town employees. I see. And has this broker, do you know if they offer some kind, either a better benefits or a cost saving for the town?
He's an advisor. He doesn't provide the benefit directly. He's going to help us strategize how to minimize premium increases and meet our obligations with the employees.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no one else, I'll entertain a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Does any member of the council wish to pull a resolution for separate discussion or have questions?
I have a question regarding 26-176. I don't think we need to pull it if a question about it at this time is appropriate.
Sure.
So we're approving the allocation of matching funds equivalent of up to 20% of the requested grant funds, or $4,000. Where does the 20% come from? Is that statutory match? I mean, it's not 50-50. How does the 20%?
The 20%, I think, is the rule of that grant program, that's our required contribution that would come out of operating funds.
Good, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with 176, I assume it's just a typo right at the end. Be it further resolved that the council president and the borough clerk, or if you caught that, as opposed to the mayor.
No, I'm putting this on you.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, we can get that straightened out.
Yeah, and just off topic, but similar, maybe similar, but whatever happened, Mr. Hines, we got the grant for the two gentlemen that are going to
Let's-
join us this summer?
We can ask that. Let's just get through the consent agenda first, and then we can go to your
That's all I
question.
have, yeah, just a minor thing.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion from the council to approve Resolution 26-170 through 26-176.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Tashian?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. Banfield?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kelly, now to your
Yeah,
question.
just something that hit my brain here. I know we approved, we got a grant for two young fellows that were going to join us, maybe one at DPW. Did they ever join us? Or, you remember that from some state program to,
The program you brought to us, I forget who sponsored it. They were going to have two young individuals. One was going to work in rec, one was going to work in DPW.
That's a federal program.
it was this summer though, I believe, right?
We actually have one employee, or not, we wouldn't say employee. We have one person working at DPW.
Sure.
They've asked us to make what we consider a second. The problem is after we hired the first one, then the big storm hit, and no one had time because in this program, you have to have constant observation of the candidates that we send.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. If there's no further business to come before the council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just wanted to say to the public, I'm wearing sunglasses because my eyes are dilated. It is not a new style that I've taken up. So
all right,
I
Mary.
apologize for looking masked.
No,
It's
it's okay to be cool. We're good.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, everyone.